So yeah, save the best for last. I'm not sure how I ended up after Carl, but thanks for coming today and hanging through it. It's been a really good day at talks and great group of people here to discuss everything, so I hope we can keep that going into the evening. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions for Zach to answer, and hold on to anything else for Doug after I'm done talking. So we had issued our first extreme danger that the GNFAC ever issued in February down in Cooke City, and I thought I just could do a quick overview of that, try and just give a history of the events leading up, the weather through the season, and leading up to that cycle, and then kind of give a slideshow because it just went high pressure and clear like the day after everything ran, so we had a good opportunity for some photos. Carl went to fly around in a plane down there and got some really good pictures, so we'll work our way through to that. All right, so like any big avalanche problem that we want to think about, we're going to start from the beginning. So this isn't from the historic cycle. This is mid-December, right in the middle of December 15th or so. And it kind of summarizes what we began the season with. We had early snow, probably 2 or 3 feet in early October to November down there in Cooke City. A lot of that stuck around at high elevations, especially the shady slopes, and froze into that nice firm ice crust on the bed surface. And then we got some facets over that and then started loading it up. That ice crust facet combo is kind of our main concern really going through January until we felt confident about it. We saw a few big cycles, especially this one in the middle of December when we first loaded it, but although we were pretty conservative with it, it didn't really perform huge. Before this cycle, the start of this storm about a week before, we had a tragic fatality on the 11th as this storm started falling. Here's a picture of the crown. 7th track down the slope, kind of a small slope during a considerable danger. Skier was caught and carried and died of trauma. It wasn't a wind-loaded slope, but it did fail on those facets over the ice crust underneath most of the snow that had just fell. Another picture of the path of that one. And then this is where that fatality occurred. This is Henderson Mountain, Henderson Bench here. I wanted to keep this slide in there because it shows a good overview of where everything happens in Cooke City pretty much, because that's where there's quick access. But a lot of these pictures of the big historic avalanche cycle come from here too, because that's where we can access and where everyone plays. So Fisher Creek Road goes up to Lulu Pass up here, and then on the other side of Henderson is Miller Creek up to Daisy Pass. So that's a good start of the layout of the land down there. And the Fisher Creek Snowtell site is just up this road as well, where we get all our Snowtell data. So through the end of December, we were concerned with that crust. We didn't, like I said, see huge widespread cycles on it, but we did issue a few warnings, that one in the middle of December, and then I think we heightened danger warning. This is right around New Year's, a big Cornish triggered slide that did break down, but didn't see a huge activity. Yeah, video's lagging a little bit. Well, anyway, I went and hit that ice crust down at the ground, show you how hard it is, and then there's some facets on top. And that was the structure we were concerned with, but it kept getting loaded. We kind of had really similar weather patterns as Jackson, so next year you guys can just incorporate that into your forecast. Fortunately, we don't have the highway to keep us up all night, just people practicing their reckless behavior. But through the end of January, really, we had a warning out in mid-January during a 4 inches of water, and didn't see a whole lot of big activity natural. I think there was some snowmobile triggered stuff, but not really widespread. And then this is kind of what we were dealing with, just these small wind slabs, storm slabs through the end of January. And then we started to get that power line storm that Jackson experienced. It started really the 31st of January, and went through the 10th February. And we had 10.9 inches of snow water equivalent over 11 days, which was the third largest SWE total over a 14-day period on record. I'll run through this quickly. You can read if you like, but Lucas from Snowtel summarized some of the historic data from the biggest snow years at that Fisher Creek Snowtel. And so 71, there was an 8.8 inch 14-day storm total. And I have a graph to summarize all this coming up next. And then 12.1 in 86, and the 13.4 in 97 was the biggest 14-day storm total. And 97 also had the all-time monthly record of 18.8 inches over a month. So these 97 and 71 were really big years. 97's the blue line on top, and 71's the purple. Here, and 71 actually had the most SWE through the season. It peaked as the same as 97, but this last little bump here put the total SWE as the record. And then there's this 86 year that big avalanche cycles all through the west. Crested Butte and Utah and Jackson all probably had historic cycles that year as well. And so we had this year, 2017. These two are looking pretty similar. 97, there was a big slide on a big prominent path up Henderson Creek, but I don't know that there was a historic cycle. And that was probably during one of these record bumps there. So that's just a comparison to other historic years. We do have the third highest amount of SWE over 14 days preceding this extreme danger and historic avalanche cycle. And I was just curious, this graphic's from right after it happened. I was curious where we're at for this year. So we are doing better than 86 down there in Cooke as the snow continues to pile up. As an 86, it looked like it went dry and probably didn't turn out to be the greatest spring. At the beginning of that storm, again, snow started on the 31st of January, and over that weekend, this was a Sunday, the 5th, this natural slide went in Sheep Creek, really wide, ran all the way down to the flats, and this is the main drainage coming down the gully. So just to show how far that slide ran and knocked over some trees there, it started to go up the other side of the drainage. Kind of a perceived safe zone, as I understand from talking to some skiers down there. They often stop here and skin up. Maybe not perceived safe zone, but just a common area to skin up when they're skiing over here and then get out of the drainage. So a little bit of an eye-opener on that. And a few other skier-triggered slides that day. This was up Fisher Creek. This is the top of Henderson Mountain. Skier-triggered slide. This is that same slide looking up at the crown. And we were thinking as this storm's piling up that what weak layers do we need to worry about? We weren't seeing anything dropping down all the way to this, maybe facets over the crust on the ground. But Doug had just been down there on the 3rd, and we were starting to maybe be concerned about some facets over an ice crust on southerly aspects. We thought maybe that Sheep Creek slide slid on that. But it wasn't really lining up. We weren't seeing widespread activity still. And there was this skier-triggered slide on Town Hill right outside of Cooke on that same day, which is in a pretty unique snowpack. It's not really representative of the higher mountains. It's lower elevation, southerly, solar, wind scoured. So it was pretty thin and probably faceted out before all this storm snow fell on it. So then it just kept snowing. We didn't really have to worry about what weak layers were down there at that point. It was like, all right, if there's weak layers, they're going to break. And if they don't, then we'll give it some time, I guess, after the snow stops. So this is just a breakdown of the daily SWE totals from after the 4th. So there's 3.2 inches from the 31st to the 4th of February, and then pretty much an inch a day leading up through the 10th. And on the 9th, we had 2.6 inches of water overnight, and that's when we issued the extreme danger the next day. We were talking about it the day before. I was down there on the 9th, and it was just snowing. Winds were ripping. It was like 60, 70 mile an hour gusts. we weren't seeing huge avalanches yet, and it's like, well, things are holding together. Luckily, we had Doug and Carl back at the office who are wise, and we're like, well, everything's got a breaking point, and we're surpassing historical records of snow water over a week. So we went with the extreme danger on the 10th. During pretty much this whole week, we just had sustained southwest winds, huge gusts. See how this video goes for that example of that. This is just getting a shot of the powder skiing we had. Well, anyway, you can kind of see the trees up here just at the top of the meadow, and the winds were just ripping. So without that, we might not have been tipping the scales, but it was certainly loading, consistent direction. The avalanche warning started on the 7th in the middle of that week, and that was for the whole southern area. Here's kind of a layout of our advisory area for the few of you who are unfamiliar. Cooke City's down there. Our Twitter feed's over here. Facts only. And we know this probably won't work, so that's why I put this photo in from when we went up and dug our pit. What are we going to look for? We can't really do stability tests. You're just going to dig a deep pit and say here's the line of the old snow and here's the new snow. My probe still has another 3 or 4 feet down to the bottom. We didn't even dig to the ground. And so we're just like, there's a lot of snow here. It came in pretty heavy and dense. It certainly was 11-12%, I'd say, through the majority of the storm. And like when we were skiing down this, we were only sinking in 6 inches, and this is all new, and over 6 days, it was like 6 inches of water in 6 days at that point. So we were pretty happy with that bonding well together, but it was just piling up the weight. This is Eric's advisory or some of it from the 10th, and just any weakness is going to get pushed past its breaking point if it's there. There's Ben's roof right after he ditched us for Idaho. I was chatting to him the night before, and we're walking in and out, and he's like, dude, don't stand there. He was right. So this was next morning. It put debris all the way down to the street almost. Yeah, sorry, the videos are going slow on our high-tech computers. We're up the Lulu Pass Road outside of Cooke City. But on that day, that extreme danger day, I was down there, and I'll just use this video to show that it's still snowing. Oh, that's the sound up there. So, snow stopped that evening. We were there that morning, saw Ben's roof slide. We didn't see it slide, but we saw the debris, and I missed one there. So this is on our way out. We went up that Fisher Creek Lulu Pass road up towards Lulu Pass. We're just gonna buzz up there. We're not really gonna go up any slopes and dig any pits because it's extreme danger, and we just wanted to play it really safe and avoid all avalanche terrain. On our way out, this is just right off the main highway east of Cooke. Not a very big slope, big wind slab. That was the only activity we saw that day, but that's huge for that area, and that slope piled a bunch of debris down in this little terrain trap there. And then pretty much the evening, afternoon of the 10th, we had a historic avalanche cycle. Snow let up, and there were people who went up that Lulu Pass road that evening. I think they left the bar going to get some powder turns at 10 p.m. and then they came back down, and this huge path had slid and covered the road while they were out there. So Doug went down there. Here's just getting into the slideshow here. That's where Doug was standing. Here's where the Fisher Creek Road goes up, down in the bottom of the drainage. And 20 feet of debris on that road there. And myself, having gone up there just, 8 to 10 hours before that happened, felt like kind of a close call to me, and definitely questioned, even going out on an extreme danger day when you don't have a really good handle on the terrain you're in, because like Zach was saying, expect the unexpected. Where you normally perceive safe areas, mature timber and stuff might be getting knocked down, and when it's dumping snow and you can't see anything unless you know exactly what's out there, I think it's beyond our terrain management ability to even really be out there. So close up of that crown, some more photos from the air. This is that same slide path. I mean, some of these air photos are just really cool, different perspective. All the wind loading. Yeah, here's the road right there. I think that video that I took on the 10th was up in this little meadow there. That's that run out zone. And then this is just up here's Lulu past the road. This is looking back. That other slide's like right here. So there's this other slide right up towards the pass that came down over some pretty low angle terrain here and down into here. And this is a great photo. Good overview of Cooke City. So Fisher Creek comes up here. There's that Henderson big slide. This is Fisher Peak. That's that second slide. And there's actually, it might be kind of hard to see in here, but there's a crown there. That was a snowmobile triggered slide a couple days after, or maybe it was that Sunday, just a day or two after it cleared up. And that was one of the few, I don't know if there were any other triggered avalanches after that storm that were that big. And then Cooke City's down in here, and then we're looking back to Republic Creek and Hayden Creek. And even the Beartooth Powder Guides was out in here afterwards, and they saw evidence of some huge slides. And Ben was just telling me, as you expand the area, this time of year, he's starting to see more and more carnage.
Yeah, clearing out like 4 or 5 acres of timber, making longer ski runs, bigger ski runs.
Yeah. So I think there was Hayden Peak. Yeah, I had a picture of that one. This slide coming down, there's the crown, it came down. This is where everyone sleds up to the pass. This is a common snowmobile sled lap route to go up this gully and drop people off over on this knob. And then, yeah, this is Hayden Peak across the drainage over here somewhere. That kind of broke all the way up and pretty characteristic. Here's that sled triggered slide. And this one's pretty interesting because it's pretty kind of shallow for given how much snow just fell. And it's on the wind scoured side, so it's almost different terrain than where all the natural slides came from. And this is the run out of that, bunch of broken trees, the end of the debris there. And then just some more natural Wolverine Peak. Went all the way down to the run out zone. Was looking up that path. Then one of Carl's shots from the air, there's the toe of the debris just all in the trees. There's a little pocket there, and then I think this whole face pretty much went, that whole path that's all debris there. And then that's another shot of that. That's like this little pocket right here. Very deep crown, smaller stuff. The north end of Sheep Mountain, a lot of debris going far into the flats, and then looking up at one of those crowns. So, yeah, pretty exciting time. What did we learn? Yeah, I think one of the things, that I really learned, like I said, with being out during extreme danger, I would have preferred not to be out that day. It was pretty too close for me, and maybe that's why we should reserve extreme dangers for really special times and try not to overuse it, because you definitely don't want to be telling people not to go out at all too often. And maybe that's not exactly the message we would associate with that, but to me it's something along those lines. And then just that, it went 8 inches and we still hadn't seen any huge avalanches, and it was like, well, I've always considered loading events, natural loading events, to be a really good test of the snowpack, better than an ECT or a PST. But you got to wait till they're over. If it's still piling up, it's still piling up. You're still hitting it. Once you get that 8 inches and then it goes high pressure, you give it a few days, and then you probably feel like the snowpack can take 3 or 4 inches after that. Anybody else learn anything?
Beware the atmospheric river.
What was the hazard rating the day after you issued extreme?
Oh, we pulled the warning. Yeah. Whoa. I mean, it did come down pretty quick. It was high, but we pulled the warning the day after.
High for day, then
It was like high a day, and I think it was just considerable on maybe for 2 or 3 days, but it did drop quickly. We just weren't too concerned about things. And looking at those slides, it's pretty consistent, like northeast aspects from that southwest wind loading. And I feel like if we did have, I mean, like Zach was saying, you can't be too weak and you can't be too strong. We could have been maybe slightly weaker and seen those things propagate wider because they don't really have that like persistent weak layer wide propagation characteristic, it seems like to me. Some of them they probably broke down to that old crust and facet combo, but
it wasn't super widespread. You know, I mean, like flying over there, it wasn't like there was avalanches on every hill. You just kept going and going, and then you got to Cooke, and because Cooke got so much more load than everybody else, like right as you came into Cooke, then all of a sudden you could see all these big slides. But even in Cooke, it wasn't like every slope slid. It was like, there's a monster, and there's like 3 slopes that didn't slide, and there's a monster, and there's like 5 slopes that didn't slide, you know? So, it was kind of interesting. I mean, I think, like, we were right on that edge where if it had stopped snowing, you might not have ever seen those, and you might have bumped right against extreme and not seen anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if it had snowed another 3 inches that night, you probably had all that stuff going. You're right on that boundary.
yeah.
And crowns are getting filled in too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there was some stuff through it, lots of stuff through the storm that got filled in, but
So you guys raised it the day after the 2.6 inches of water. Did you have a sense on the timing of those waves? Were they like? Do you think you were a day late in that? Mostly because I want to throw a dog out of
well, it was pretty much, it was right on.
It really was perfect. I mean, I think you nailed it.
So why do you think you saw it peak? Seems like the avalanche activity peaked after the preset rate peaked. Is that correct?
Yeah, maybe partly because of wind, but it was like right after. Like we had that. It was like 2.6 from Thursday afternoon through when it stopped on Friday, and then we think most of that activity occurred Friday evening.
I think it also sort of peaked because the sun cut in. I just remember, I can't remember if it was the extreme day right after, like every roof in town.
Yeah.
slid.
Well, when we were there, roofs were sliding and then like reloading and sliding again. But I think the wind too. I mean, the wind blew until last week.
Well, I was just wondering, is your Fisher Creek Snowtel site the only weather station you have to get your data from, or do you have other?
Yeah, that's our
upper
only.
stations, or-
Well, Miller, I mean, there's a few other snowtel sites in the vicinity
Oh.
but Fisher's the most reliable.
Yeah, and that's right in the center of it. Same with our wind stations right up there too.
But then we have a guide service too, which feeds us,
They
you know,
have
those tabs on
help
this.
in the backcountry.
It was really an eye-opener from like the standpoint of like we guide a lot of the same terrain all the time. And just seeing like stuff that you're like, man, like worst case scenario, you're like maybe this could happen, and totally going worse than we ever thought it could. Like areas that we totally consider safe zones just wiped out. You know? So it was a big eye-opener from that. Because you think about 250-year trees getting just acres of 250-year-old trees getting plowed. That's like, we only live for so long. That's an event people don't get to witness that often.
And we knew that a bunch of the paths there that were established in '86, because I did some work for the Forest Service when they were going to put that line in, and updated a bunch of these paths, including that one on Henderson, which was established in '86. I mean, the periphery of it was established in '86, and a bunch of those up there were. But I didn't, you know, and so you're right. I mean, our time frame is so short, and yeah, there's not too many of us in this room that remember '86. Just a couple.
So Carl, is that when the Gallatin started forecasting for that area?
No, the Gallatin didn't start until '90. So, but I remember '86 because I just remember all the Avalanche activity in Colorado and Utah.
I remember
And,
Jackson.
and I remember Jackson and all this stuff happening in '86. And then, you know, so when we were pouring trees, and I'm like, oh, all these trees are dating to '86. You're like, oh, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.